You ruined my intro, man. I was holding that in for so long. You realize how bad that is for your lungs?
Son of a bitch. I'm sorry. I forgot about that. Welcome to the Gooners Podcast, episode 5.34, your double podcast today. It's a 2 for Tuesday or whatever day it is, Thursday. Owen, great to see you. I have a message to pass along from an old friend of ours.
Oh, God. This could be dodgy.
No, his name is Andy Rhodes. He says he misses you. His sores are healing nicely, and the reattachment seems to be holding. So, I saw him a little earlier on. He showed up unannounced when I was interviewing Ian Dark earlier today, which class gentleman. And for our second podcast of the day, we got these guys.
We do. It's good. And I can't wait to, just if you can send a message back to Andy, tell him that I can't wait for his next annual podcast. I'm looking forward to talking to him again.
Yeah, I told him, in 3 months when we have another good guest on, we'll see if he's available back then. But anyway, straight from Tennessee, USA, we have joining with us the Arsenal Quizmaster, expat, for some reason lives in Tennessee. We'll find out why. And for some reason, when I hear your last name, I get really hungry. I can't explain why. I don't know. But Mike McDonald writes Arsenal blogs for Gunnerstown, the king of the Who Am I Arsenal games, and he breaks his Gooners Pod duck today. New special effects for the show. Mike McDonald, great to have you on, bud.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And, we've been talking about having you on for a while, and the timing's finally worked. So, we also are joined by somebody as he unmutes his mic, who also reminds me of fast food. His name is Jason McWendy's Baconator.
Absolutely.
That's actually his name. Jason Shredder, a.k.a. Shreds, a.k.a. Colonial Cannon, formerly of the Bergkamp Wonderland. Also breaking his duck today.
Boys.
And it took 49 times for me to get this guy.
It did.
49 times and like 200 quid.
Yeah. Well, the 200 quid's unconfirmed still because I'm still waiting for that transfer into my Robinhood account so I can reinvest in some GameStop. But yeah, no, it was 49 times. We had a great meeting in Charlotte around the Arsenal game there and in DC as well a couple summers ago, and you've been bugging me and
bugging. That's I finally was like, I don't have an excuse.
I don't have it. No, I was like, look, Arsenal's winning on the trot here. This is a decent time to go talk instead of having to listen to all the boo birds talk about how Willian shouldn't be near the team, which we'll find out how I feel about that later. That's called a tease in the industry, everybody. That's called a tease.
It is, and then we're going to have the callback later. It is a lot easier to podcast during times like this than it is. It was getting to be. That's why we brought Owen in. We're like, look, we can't anymore. You're Irish. You're always happy. That's at least the rap that you got. And so we need that. So anyway, we did share quite a few beverages in Charlotte last year, a number of beverages, in fact, and that number was 80.
Yeah.
So anyway, Owen, this is an Arsenal podcast, and we have some good stuff to talk about, I think. So
we do, yeah. What we'll do is, I think, before we sort of start talking about the United game and some other topics, I know it's maybe seems like a while back now, but we'll cover the Southampton game. But Mike, I've seen that you wrote an article there over at Gunnerstown, sort of summarising what you thought of the performance. Can you sort of, obviously not word for word and in that exactly,
read that out loud to us, please?
Yeah, word for word. He's got. But can you sort of give us your sort of basic summary of how you thought that game went?
Yeah, for sure. Well, for me, it was in the main parts won by the coach. I think, thankfully, our coach has turned himself around as well as the team around and gone from over-coaching to winning games. And that one, to me, was most certainly one because we played them, 3 days before? And so he got a look at them. And so I put out something beforehand commenting that the coach that paid attention or maybe is the better of the more analytical coaches and implementation would probably win this game because they've just seen each other 3 days before. And what happened was, and to be fair to Hassan Hüttl, he's a very good coach. He just pressed the repeat button, didn't he? And just tried to do what he did before, and it worked. So I don't blame him for doing that. But Arteta adjusted, and he moved us up the field about 15, 20 yards. And so just as an example for that was was it 50 seconds when Lacazette should have scored? Well, we had Granit Xhaka, he was now inside their half, and he was just on the back side of the circle winning a ball, and therefore he didn't have the opportunity to pass it back to David Luiz or Holding, which is his preference normally, isn't it? Let's be honest. He was facing with his hips forward, and so he saw Lacazette and quickly played him the ball. And that was just an example of what the coach had done, not just for him, but for the whole team, moving our unit, our block up the field, putting Pepe on the left so that he could let the ball come across his body and not turn into traffic, which I thought was huge for him, because when he plays on the right, he's so one-footed, isn't he, that he just turns into traffic. But now he was turning away from traffic, one touch, second touch, goal. And so there's a lot more to it, for me, but that's probably the general outline of what I saw. I will mention one more other thing, Owen, is I don't know if it was just a conversation or a training session or what it was, but the amount of forward passes compared to a month ago was, I don't know, I'm not a stats guy so much, but somebody maybe can tell me what percentage increase on forward passes versus sideways and definitely backwards passes.
100%.
No kidding.
We were at 0% earlier. We would go around the world the opposite direction to try to score a goal.
Yeah, and I think our biggest problem this whole season has been we've been a risk-averse team, just constantly playing the safe ball. And now that we moved up the field and were encouraged to play forward, we didn't look like a risk-averse team. So we've sort of healed our biggest problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned there earlier, Mike, the key difference in this game was that sort of where our line was sitting. I think especially in the FA Cup, the thing that won Southampton the game was that high press, that high intensity play, not giving anybody a second to think on the ball. And I think we beat them at their own game in a sense, but in fairness, I have to come out and say this, as good as it was to see us win, you have to give credit to Southampton, because overall I thought them as a footballing side, the intricacy within their short play, 1-2 touch football, I think they're a fantastic footballing side, and I think that if Ralph Hasenhüttl stays there and gets the backing, that they could genuinely become a sort of mainstay at the sort of the top end of that table and around sort of fighting for them European places. But Jason, somebody that Mike touched on there was Nicola Pepe, him being moved out to the left, which I said on a previous podcast a couple of days ago. I think it benefited him because it made things so much more straightforward for him. Yeah. He didn't have to think as much, and even the goal that he put in was just a bog standard swing your foot at the ball and see if it hits the back of the net. But what did you make of his performance as a whole? And do you think that performance has sort of stood him in good stead for the future, or do you think that maybe his days are numbered at the club? The curtain's been drawn on his future, and it'll be he'll be moved on at the next given opportunity.
So I think it was great. Again, I think you really hit the nail on the head with he didn't have to think about it, right? He's on the left side. He's an instinctual left-footed player. Everything is going to come more naturally to him that way. And I think that's one of the things we haven't done with a lot of these younger players we've bought, is we haven't put him in an instinctual position enough. So it was really good to see him flourish in that role, understand what he had to do. And I think we've seen him get into good positions before, and he hasn't executed like he did on the night. So I think it was really good to see just that crispness in the game. His timing, he seemed to be better with the rest of his teammates coming on the left as well. And so, I was, and it leads into that second point. I'm heartened by it. Yeah, absolutely. It's really good. I think it's a great foundational game for him to go on in the rest of the year, because I think right now he's in the gray column right now, where we don't really know. And if he continues to play like this, I think we would probably try to keep him. But we've also seen him have games like this where he has impressed and he has played well, but he can't string them together really well. And that's the biggest thing, and that's what we need right now as well, period, is we got to have players in the side who can string games together and be, 7.5, 8, 9s out of 10 every single game, instead of popping up to a 10 and then back down to a 6. So Yeah, I think right now, I'm gonna ride this fence here as uncomfortable as it is, and say I still think there's a lot to be too much football this season to be played to say we need to get rid of him or we need to keep him. But again, it's an encouraging performance for him to build on if he wants to stay.
Yeah, I would agree. My concern isn't with the possibility of him fulfilling his potential at Arsenal. My worry is that I think for the type of league that the Premier League is and the level of competition that he faces, I don't think that he's going to get away with as much as he would have, in the French league. I think that he probably is more suited to playing on the left, and the only problem I have is that with the substantial investment the club have made to keep Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang at the club, and that really seems to be the role that he flourishes in at this stage in his career. And then behind him is Gabriel Martinelli. I think that it's a very difficult avenue for him to get into the team. And then on the right hand side, Mikey, is Bukayo Saka. Bukayo Saka has been just flourishing in recent weeks, and
possibly Odegaard as well now.
Yeah, that's another possibility. Definitely,
there's a lot of blockage between Pepe and a regular starting right now.
Oh, there is for sure, but going to Saka, something that I think everybody, even when he burst onto the scene and he was so exciting, the one criticism people would have had of him is maybe that his end product in terms of goal contributions, but he really seems to be adding that to his game. I think he's got 6 direct goal involvements in his last 6 games or something, with 2 assists and 4 goals. Do you think Bukayo Saka can sustain not only this form, but sustain his ability to play like that under immense pressure? Because really he seems like our sort of talisman at the minute.
Yeah, he's been the guy who's really taken some pressure off of Aubameyang in a sense. I mean, last season it was Aubameyang or bust. This season it was bust because we had no Aubameyang. We're starting to get what they like to call over here secondary scoring now, whether it's Pepe recently, Saka, Martinelli, and Lacazette, and that's a large part of what's making us climb up the table right now. Do I think Saka can be that guy? I hope so. I mean, it's a lot for a kid that young, but again, youth is more about personality and mentality than it is about age. This Chelsea shirt, I love it. But I mean, I don't think there's anything that Bukayo Saka can handle right now. As long as we keep him healthy, as long as we don't burn him out mentally or physically. And dipping back on Pepe, I mean, one good game. Let's remember it's one good game, but it's in a position where you almost think it could turn the key for him. He's got a lot of people in front of him. Speaking of Robin Hood and GameStop, I mean, if we ditched him right now, we'd be ditching him at an all-time low. You can almost, not get any lower for him. So if he's going to continue to put in some good performances, even if it's once every 2 or 3 games that he's playing, playing back up to be a Premier League player, maybe that learning curve between the French League and the Premier League is just taking longer for him. I'm not convinced, but I'd plunk him in there when we need him. And clearly around this time of year, some legs are getting tired, some calves are getting tight. Some tuchuses are, needing rest. So it's nice to see that he might have gotten some of his spark back.
Yeah, and I actually think that something that I've noticed in this game, and again, Mike, I'm like you, or maybe somebody, one of the statistic nerds that we know could maybe throw this out, but I actually think that Bukayo Saka has been more conserved in his movement of late, and I put that down to the inclusion of Emile Smith-Rowe. I think that he feels less of a soul burden to create for the side, and I think that he's sort of containing himself to make those sort of creative runs off the ball. So I think that there's a level of maturity going on in his development. So there is, but something there, Mikey, I can't believe I'm calling you Mikey. It's fucking weird. Something that Mike touched on there was cramp. And 2 players that suffered cramp during that game, Emile Smith-Rowe and Thomas Partey, 2 key figures within our side. But not only how important are they to the system, but do you think that this has justified Arteta's decision to heavily rotate in the FA Cup? Because we're starting to see sort of bodies drop at the minute, and it's something that he got heavily scrutinised for after the defeat in the Cup.
You're asking me or Mike?
Mike.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think I did not understand how people were so overtly upset that he did what he did. And to me, it's just it frustrates me when people just act so intelligent after the event. A lot of them who weren't upset when he picked the team that was good enough to compete with Southampton, and then all of a sudden there has to be an excuse and a reason and a chance to bash the coach after it doesn't go right. To me, it was a shame that our second string on that day hadn't got the form. It wasn't the talent, hadn't got the form to compete with Southampton, and it turned out that way. But, you all know the list of fixtures that we have is like 8 or 9 games in a row that are all, a toss-up. Even with us in really good form, even teams like Leeds and Villa that are coming up in and amongst City and Leicester, I don't understand how people can be upset because if you're not going to play that team that he played in the first game against Southampton, do you want them to play against Benfica? Do you want them to play against Villa? Do you want them to play against, Manchester City? You don't, do you? Mm-hmm. So I don't understand. I mean, you can't play this golden 11 or 13 that we have. You can't play them for 9 games in a row. Otherwise, they'll break. And maybe a couple of them have broken already and can't play on Saturday. Hope not. But you just can't do that. So I just don't understand bashing the coach with the easy stick.
In a few weeks, we've got Benfica, City, Benfica, all within 7 days. Benfica being important, and probably in the first leg, it's not going to be a slaughter one way or the other. So, and I'm hearing things about the COVID requirements that are going to be interesting with that. But that aside, what's the narrative going to be there? Because you can't have the same set of 11 players play all 3 games. It's all 90 minutes. The problem is that the shift down to the second squad, the shift down to the second choice players when you rotate is such a cliff jump, from the first team, and that's not necessarily at this point Arteta's fault.
Yeah, I mentioned on another podcast the other day that people say that it's the die-hard approach where people turn around and say we should be going for every competition, we should be in it to win every competition. But the truth and reality is that we don't have the squad to compete in 3 competitions. I don't even think we've got the squad to compete in 2 competitions, especially given certain individuals within our side. You look at the difference when Kieran Tierney is excluded. Okay, Cedric had a freak game there, and we'll touch on him later, but Cedric had a freak game. I think if you remove Thomas Partey or Emile Smith-Rowe, I think it falls apart. And even Rob Holding, who I think was one of the unsung heroes of that win over Southampton as well. So when we talk about our starting 11 on rotation, to me, I have no problem at all with Mikel Arteta surrendering, if you want to call that a competition, for the betterment of another. Because the truth is that the FA Cup's a brilliant cup to win, but in our current position, where we are on the free fall we've been in for years, the financial implications of missing out in Europe completely would be catastrophic, and it would take, I think, a couple of years to recover from that. But Jason, somebody that wasn't in and around the starting 11 was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He was absent for personal reasons. We've sort of since learned that it was because his mother had fallen ill. But talk to me about what you made of some of the false rumors, the reaction on Twitter in particular. And do you think that something that this really highlighted for me was the division within our own fan base? And do you blame that on Twitter as a platform?
I being an American, I blame all division on Twitter. So I think it's a great place to be divisive because you can't be held accountable with a fist to your face. So of course people are going to say inflammatory, provocative things. With Pierre, the one thing I do know is like Aubameyang's had issues with attitude in the past. So that's the first thing everybody's going to go to, right? Anytime it's always going to be something, and then all the other crazy rumors start. Yeah, I think it's just it's the social media shitstorm that we live in today that really just allows people to not have to verify what they think or say, and they think that everybody else should feel that as well. So again, glad his mother's recovering. All shout outs to Mama Aubameyang.
Mama Yang.
Mama Yang. There we go. Yeah, I'll go for that one. And again, glad that I think we have been so reliant on him in the past. Every single player stepped up for him in the game against Southampton, especially going down how we did so early. So that was great. So I think it's been really nice to see. I think, people were making up rumors and all other kind of stuff. But yes, that's correct. Hashtag.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. People are making up rumors about the dressing room division, which, those guys are on Twitter as well. So that's probably where they're getting it from. But it's good to see the team unite like that. And I think we saw what we can do when we do unite as a team. And so that was one of the other positive things that I took is we had our horse that we've ridden into the ground was not there. We couldn't rely on him. And people stepped up. And that was great to see. Because we haven't always seen that, especially at this time of year.
Yeah. And I think as well, something that I could put into context as well is I think a lot of people were saying when we seen the dip off in Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's form is that, possibly personal issues. And I just, it sort of begs into question whether this has maybe been an issue for him personally for this past while, and it again highlights that they're just humans like the rest of us. They've got their own concerns, obviously, of being presumptuous there. But Mike Feinberg, I'm just going to have to start calling you by your full title.
I really prefer you not. We're as of this morning's show or this afternoon's show, we're working on a stage name for me because we've got Ian Dark that was on with us. Like Dark, you can put into like a title. Andy Rhodes, the roads less traveled. Eoin Young and the Restless, and then you got Mike Feinberg. Like it's the worst, dude.
Did you just call me Ian again?
Yeah, I did. Yes. Sorry, I can't have an Ian and an Owen on at the same time, the same day. So yeah, it's a curse. I can't take it anymore.
Well, and something else that you can't take anymore is any sort of Mesut Ozil involved subject. Oh. But I saved it just for you, man. Because look, what did you make of? Obviously, Mesut Ozil has departed. It's brilliant to see that sort of that chapter of the club sort of drawn to a close. But something I've been really disappointed in, and I know we've maybe covered Mustafi's tribute, but you can cover that again. But not only his, but now Sead Kolasinac, who is still an employee of Arsenal Football Club, posting out cryptic messages that aren't overly cryptic. It's obviously a fuck you to the club from both these players. What have you made of not only Ozil's exit, but the concern of his clique within the club, or the response of his clique? Sorry.
His clique in the club is shrinking and disappearing and being kicked out systematically. And at this point, if they're salty and they want to, if Guendouzi and Kolasinac and any of these guys want to post snarky social media posts that make the club look bad, by all means, go ahead and do it. Fuck yous, as you would say.
Fuck yous.
Fuck yous. He says that to me all the time. He like there's a button on his phone where he just presses it and it goes into our WhatsApp chat. But yeah, those guys can fuck them because they're all one by one dropping. And Arteta's hold and respect within the dressing room, I feel, is headed up. And the people who remain are going to be the ones who are the ones welcoming in new players in a new era going forward, and and not indoctrinating them into the ways of the leftovers. So you're muted.
What did you make about the fact that Shotgun Mustafi strolls into Edu and Arteta's office and says, "You paid my friends off. Can I have my money and then can I go?" And it's like, "Nah, fuck you, man."
Do we know that happened?
Yeah, well, apparently he was in negotiations. I think Sky Sports had it confirmed, didn't it? That he was in negotiations to.
So he wanted to leave on a free, whereas he probably still has some value. So we're not doing that for him. I mean, no. I'd love to see him go. Even if it's $4 million, that's a couple of years of wages for Balogun.
Yeah, exactly. No, look, it just shows the level of toxicity that was in the club. You know, at the end of the day, I can't even say that anymore without laughing. It's a long story, that. But at the end of the day, when players that are still under contract by the club, and the club that have given them so much, and the club who have stuck by them while they've been slated by the fan base at times, and now they're turning around and essentially just spitting in their faces. I just think it's disgusting behaviour from professionals, and it really sort of,
they're showing who they are. They're
yeah,
showing
exactly.
what they are.
Their true colours are shining through. But enough about the old players. And Mike, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, because from reading your articles and stuff, it's quite clear that you're quite good on the analytical side of the game. Thoughts on Martin Odegaard signing, what that could mean for the team, what that could mean for Emile Smith-Rowe, and essentially, could you maybe eventually see that deal maybe being made permanent if it works out? Oh, you're muted.
But before Mike answers, I just want to play one quick thing here.
Sometimes it's easier just to say the name, and it's Martin Odegaard. 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 Odegaard.
All right, we got it?
Do I have to
Dear God.
Oh, dear God. Good. I'm glad that you listened. We're big about pronunciation.
That's the GFP's pronunciation the rest of the season on ABW. Have no fear.
And gotta love is that red wine that you've got there?
It is. I've got a nice full bottle.
That is my beverage of choice. However, I'm at the office and have to drive home. So sorry, Mike. We all jumped in front of you, buddy.
Oh, man, I'm not worried. I'm going to call him Martin, because
that seems to be the smart thing to do.
Or as he would be called over here, Wee Marty.
Yeah, let's do that, because the other sounded like something that came out your bottom or something. I don't know what that was. But, anyway, so do you want me to be analytical? So
why are we talking about blood right now?
Not.
Right, go ahead.
So I don't, just my timeline, my Arsenal friends, I don't think that they fully understand how good this guy really is. And it's not just that he's played for Real Madrid and he did the tour of Europe when he was 15. You know, I see a world-class player there. He may well even be that already, who just needs some confidence in him. You know, I watch a lot of him. I've watched a lot of his games for Vitesse, and I watched the whole season of him at Real Sociedad. And people need to understand that the reason that he didn't play for Real Madrid was mainly because Toni Kroos and Luka Modric found their form. And Luka Modric found his form to the point where, I don't know if you guys heard this one the other day, he got a new contract and he's 35. So to play for Real Madrid when you're 35 and be offered a new contract, you're obviously doing a fine job. And that's why he couldn't get in the team. And the other piece of it, as far as why he's not been playing and he's somewhat underrated, is that Real Madrid changed their formation to a 4-3-3, and that's not optimal for him. You know, he's at his best as the number 10, which is what we have right now, playing the 4-2-3-1. He can play the right 8 in a 4-3-3, but he was up against Modric, who was on fire, and he can play on the right wing. So I think he has a natural eye for the creative pass, much like the German chap that we don't want to mention. He had in his pomp, not in the last couple of years, but when he was at his best, that was his first thought. And that's the same with Martin Odegaard, is that he thinks that first, whereas we could go around the Arsenal team and I could ask you, what do you think Nicola Pepe's first thought is? What do you think Granit Xhaka's first thought is? And we could probably give comedic answers. But this guy, his first thought is to try something that's a little risky and probably won't come off. And he doesn't look like the kind of player, to me, that goes off the field. Like, I'm aware that this actually happens, that they get handed their stat sheet as soon as they come off the field and show them their pass completion in particular, which I think has become a huge hindrance to creative players in general in the last 5 or so years, is that they are obsessed with not upsetting their coach in as far as that stat sheet is concerned, and they want to have high pass completion, so they don't try to be risky. But this player is of the absolute elite level. He's up there with, to me, Mbappe and Haaland and Camavinga and Gravenberch as the best young players in the whole of Europe. And to be fair, he's not as young as them, because he played professional football at 15 and he's 22. So he played for 6 years.
I remember his transfer before Chris Carpenter ever told me about Mbappe. It was probably six months earlier than I heard about Mbappe, and that's how long he's been expected to be elite, and it's never really added up on the elite level of football clubs. But I mean, I'm certainly getting a stiffy hearing what you're talking about here, and you've put yourself on the line. I like that you put yourself on the line here, because if it doesn't work out, we're replaying this over and over again.
Yeah, well,
you said that he's better than Mbappe and Ronaldo combined.
I would say this, that if it doesn't work out, it's not going to be because he's not good enough or he's not world-class potential. It will probably be an injury, or he didn't have enough time to adapt to the Premier League, or the coach preferred Smith Rowe. It's not going to be a talent issue. He is a wonderful footballer. And the other thing, to answer your last question, Owen, I think he could play 3 or 4 positions. In our current setup, I think he needs to alternate with Saka and Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe looks like he might be on the verge of breaking, so there's an option there. Saka's played an awful lot of football, we all know that, and so please, somebody needs to sit him down for a little while so we don't break him. And then you've got, the 4-3-3. If we go to that, which I think is going to be the ultimate formation at Arsenal, he could play on the right 8. So I think you've got a couple of things that would happen there. You could play Thomas Partey as a defensive midfielder with Smith Rowe and Ødegaard against maybe a low block and a weaker team, where you could afford to have just one guy sitting and 2 guys creating. And then if not, you could sit one of Smith Rowe and Ødegaard down and play the other one in a 4-3-3. And then the last thing I'd say is you could even, because he's so gifted, play him where Pepe played the other day. If he played on the right wing, he could play on the left wing. And whilst Aubameyang's still getting back into it, you could possibly even on Saturday see him sub in or even start on the left, because Saka and Smith Rowe, if they're fit, are hard to not play, right?
Yeah, but again, it's healthy competition, and I think you hit the nail on the head there with, to be honest with you, already, I know he hasn't even kicked a ball for the club yet, but by the way Mikel Arteta is speaking about this guy, and I agree, I remember when he was 15 and the buzz was about, and Liverpool were trying to get him, PSG were trying to get him, all the big hitters were trying to get this guy, and for me, the only thing that slowed him down was the formation that Real Madrid play. You know, that, like you said, they play that 4-3-3 with a flat 3 in midfield with a 6 and 2 8s, and I think that come the end of the season, if Zinedine Zidane is still the manager at Real Madrid, the potential to make this permanent is real. And I think, by the way, like I was saying, the way Mikel Arteta is talking about this kid, and the rumours that have come out that I think it was Fabrizio Romano and a couple of other journalists have all said that that they'll assess the situation at the end of the loan, which to me is quite clear that there's an avenue to be explored there about the potential of making this a permanent move. But Jason, something Mike touched on there was that ASR seems to be sort of getting a bit leggy, and he is a player that does have quite a large history of injuries. That's what sort of stunted his growth in many ways up until this point. But if ASR was injured, say for the United game, do you think it's sensible or realistic to drop someone like Ødegaard into that game, or is it maybe too much too soon for the guy?
Have him. So first off, here's all of my thoughts on Martin Ødegaard. Buy him in FIFA because he's always going to turn out to be 90 plus rated, no matter what season of FIFA you have. Just go ahead and do that. That's the extent. I've never seen the kid play. Only going off what the smart guys like Mr. McDonald said. Not Chris Carpenter, not what he said either. I think we saw this a little bit when a war broke, where these younger guys who haven't had these full minutes, once they get 8 or 9 games under their belt and they start to get on a good run again, that you can start to see the boots get heavier. You can start to see the knees get a little lower on the sprints. And I think I'm torn on this because bringing Ødegaard directly, bringing him into a Premier League game with United. And let me pull up we're at home, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that if we were on the road, I'd say hell no, because we're at home. It's our digs. It's our locker room. I think it goes to a 50-50 shot. And I think one of the only reasons is because I don't know who else we're going to play there if we're not going to play ESR. And I'll let you run with it around player selection around that. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about our new number 10.
Yeah, it's a strange one for me. As you said, it's the alternatives, or sorry, more so the lack of alternatives for me. But another thing is, I think that is good that maybe could favour Ødegaard to be selected in this match is that the position that he plays, that creative 10, it's an extremely free role. It's all down to instinct and just sort of your natural position, and you aren't sort of regimented to be stuck in a position. So I think it's probably the one position, apart from maybe a striker as well, that you can really just be thrown in and left to your own devices to see what you're made of. And I think that I think another thing this highlights, and if there is the potential to make this a permanent signing, is that this is so sensible from the club. When you look at some of the players that we have now in terms of the age profiles, Kieran Tierney, Bukayo Saka, Gabriel at the back, Martinelli on the left, this core group of players that it's sort of like we all laughed at trust the process and it's a project, but it's really starting to be assembled now, and the future does look bright if we can, number one, keep hold of them, keep them fit, and keep them on the trajectory that they're on at the minute.
Have they all played in the same game at the same time? Like everyone that possibly could. Think about this. Have we had a game where Gabriel, Partey, Tierney, Martinelli, Saka, and Smith Rowe have all been on the pitch at the same time? I don't think it's even close that we have. Maybe 4 out of the 6 at most, because so many. Gabriel's missed time, Partey's missed time. Smith Rowe didn't get in until a month ago. That's what I'm excited about when you talk about our squad. I mean, if they're all healthy and firing, and on the pitch at the same time, then God knows what we might see. We just haven't had that yet.
Fine Borg, CLAW AFC says, and it was funny. It was my next question for you here. Was that somebody that really impressed me on against Southampton, playing against his old club, was Cedric. Probably surprisingly playing on the in left back, but he's put in a couple of sort of solid performances, but a very creative one from him the other night. And I think that's maybe something that we have lacked down the right hand side. Now, operating under the presumption that Kieran Tierney is going to be fit to start at left back, do you think that Cedric has earned himself a place over Hector Bellerin to come into the starting 11? And what do you think the end result is going to be out of that sort of continuous battle between them two for that spot?
I think he's earned it, but I don't think he'll get it. I think if Bellerin's fit and ready to go, he's going to be the guy that Arteta trusts. He kind of feels comfortable with what he'll get out of him. He's been in a lot of those games for Arsenal already. Again, if it were me, I'd like to kind of let Cedric let him go and run with it, and keep his good run of form going on. But if Tierney's fit, I think Cedric is kind of a spot starter at left right now and a spot starter at right. Nice to know that he can do both. I mean, he had the game that we all hoped Mainsley would have a couple weeks ago when he was plugged into the left back position. But I think Cedric's better suited for that than he is. And you don't need a left foot when you're from the left side when you're putting in, balls to Saka like he did in that last Southampton game. That was incredible from that position. So, you could do worse than having a squad guy like Cedric. I mean, people mock that signing. We know that signing was fraught with chicanery and shady dealings with Raul, but as a player, he looks to be worth it.
Yeah, it's I've mentioned on many occasions that I think that when people talk about competition, you also need to have people who are happy to be in the squad playing second fiddle, and Cedric alongside maybe the likes of Mohamed El Neni or them too. Mikel Arteta spoke of his professionalism while he wasn't getting regular minutes, and that he just kept his head down, kept working, and that's sort of the thing that you want to see from those squad players. Mike, I know you had something you wanted to touch on in Odegaard, so you can whack away at that, but I'll throw this question to you as well. Arsenal United, that for me was the fixture that when I was growing up, that was the fixture. And to me, and this might sound stupid for an Arsenal fan to say, but for me, even more so than Spurs, I despise United. They're
like that for a lot of people. I think not me, because I'm proud of Arsenal, but for a lot of people,
fuck you.
For a lot of people, it's.
But no, that is the big fixture. We think of the battles. The Battle of Old Trafford. Roy Keane Vieira battles, that Henry flick goal. But do you think that this fixture still holds the same weight in the heart of the fans? Oh, you're on mute, buddy.
Sorry, did it again.
Oh,
yeah. I don't think it does quite, only because we aren't challenging like we did back in the Vieira days. That doesn't mean that I think that it doesn't at all. I think it would be a little less, and there was a 10-year period where it was us and United or pretty close, and that's just not the case anymore. I think it just depends on your environment, probably. I mean, from somebody, British living in the US, I don't have the same sort of hatred for Tottenham as I can claim that the folks who live in North London do. That just wouldn't be fair for me to say, because I don't go to work with those people. In fact, I don't know anybody where I live that supports Tottenham, but I know a lot of people that support Man United. So it's just a personal thing for me. I really want to beat Manchester United far more than I do Tottenham, but that doesn't mean that I like Tottenham or anything like that. So that's just, I think it just depends on where you live, but and your personal experience. And going back to I just wanted to add another thought here for the Martin Odegaard possibilities, I suppose. There is a formation that puts arguably our best players on the field, and it would probably a long shot that it'll happen, but Southampton actually played it against us, which is the 4-2-2-2. Now, it would be harsh on Aubameyang or Lacazette, but let's say Martin Odegaard proves to be an elite player and he can produce in the Premier League, then you could play, let's say, Thomas Partey and I'm not a big Xhaka fan, but he's playing well now. But let's say you play Partey and Xhaka, then you could play Smith Rowe and Odegaard as 10s, dual 10s in front of them. And then you could play Saka and one of Aubameyang and Lacazette up front. So I don't know if that's something that we'll see. It's exactly what Southampton did to us. And I was listening to Clive Palmer the other day, and he was talking about how that's his new favourite formation. A lot of coaches are moving to playing 4-2-2-2. So there's that one other thing. And can I quickly chime in on the Cedric thing? Is that cool?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that Cedric's performance might have encouraged Arsenal to go buy a younger left back. And I think we are going to buy a new left back in the next few days. But I think there might be this fellow from Hibernian they're talking about. I can't pronounce his name. But I think if Cedric's going to play more minutes there and be the backup left back, we don't have to freak out and go buy Ryan Bertrand, for example. We can buy a young guy that we want to, get up to the level a little slower and not have to chuck him in at the deep end. And I think that does that for the club, and I think that's fantastic. And I'm with Mike on the Bellerin thing. I don't think it's going to happen, but I wish it did, because I think Hector Bellerin to me is a 7 out of 10 defender and a 6 out of 10 attacker, and spends 60% of his game at Arsenal throughout the years on the wing. But he obviously doesn't practice on the training field beating a man. He gets the ball on the wing, stops, and passes it backwards almost every single time. And you know what? If I played for Arsenal, team I supported for 40 years of my life, and I had to go to practice every single day, I would make sure I would be the best that I could be. And he has never done that. He's taken his spot for granted, and he's a submissive player, Bellerin, and he's not willing to take a risk. And for a player as athletic and fast as him, that it bothers me. So I'm not a big fan of Hector Bellerin on the field. I like him off the field, but I don't appreciate the fact that he spends 60% of his game being submissive on the wing. And now you've got Cedric, who's pushing him. So I think Cedric should play. I will say one more thing. Hector Bellerin is a big game player and normally produces his best in the big games. Got a lot of big games coming up. So maybe that's why we'll see more Hector than Cedric.
Yeah, Bellerin against Chelsea is always good for something stunning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something
Either-
always happens. Whether it's good or bad, something mental always happens. He even said that in his documentary.
Yeah, either gets knocked out by someone who wants the ball more, or he scores a world beat.
He's a space player, man. It was never more evident than against Southampton. I think he was one of the ones that struggled alongside maybe David Luiz. But it seems to me that if you pressure him at all at the back, he just turns into a bumbling idiot. He can't stay composed, and it's really. I know this sounds stupid because it's such a basic part of football and such a necessity within football, but his passing is just terrible. It's basic sort of. I've seen fellas at 5-a-side that can pass better in tight spaces than he can, and I don't know. I like him. I think he can be quite good. I think sometimes he's harshly judged. I wouldn't say that you were doing that at all, Mike. But I think on Twitter and stuff, he gets the brunt end of the stick a lot of the times. But it's warranted at times. But
I would absolutely move on in the summer while he still has value. It's not. They're not going to do it. That guy's going to be at Arsenal till he's 32 years old.
His market value to actual on-field value is massively in our favor. I think the fact that he's so involved with these like social movements and his image and his public image and stuff. I've said this a lot of times. If PSG come in for him, they would spend top dollar on someone like a Hector Bellerin.
And there's probably 4 or 5 teams in Spain that would love to have him. Maybe Unai wants him back. I mean, the time is now, if ever, and the time for us to reload. There was a question about, and it's the same names being mentioned. The Lamptey, who's not going to be affordable, Aarons, who could be. I mean, even if we've got Maitland-Niles, Cedric, who's getting a little up there in age. I mean, even if we don't necessarily reload, this is the time to get that money for Bellerin. We have to start getting rid of some people who have been good service to the club and still have value. I feel the same way about Lacazette. As much as it would be hard to imagine us without him the last couple of games, he's 29 or something like that, and probably still has ridiculous value for someone who's that age. And the drop off, once it hits, we've blown it yet again. I
think Lacazette's hit a patch of form in the perfect time, because if he finishes this season strong, he's raised his value again. And Jason, touching on transfers here, there was a lot of sort of emphasis put on January, and then there's a lot being put on the summer in particular. But sticking with January here, what have you made of the transfer business we have done, ingoings, outgoings, and do you expect possibly any more incomings or outgoings before the end of the window?
It wouldn't surprise me if we did end up doing a loan for a proper left-footed left back, right? An older guy from even maybe the Championship who can fill in for minutes, right? Somebody that's just super trustworthy. That wouldn't surprise me. I think we've probably seen. I don't think we're going to buy anybody, unfortunately. But also, like, who says you have to buy somebody every transfer window, right? Like, we understand we have needs. We also understand the financial situation that us and a lot of other clubs in Europe are in right now. So I think we've got to take that into consideration. And I still think we may see an outgoing or two. I think Mustafi's still trying to get out of his contract. You're talking about Reece Nelson probably going out on loan as well. And who knows, you guys were mentioning, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, conservative there. I think he may go out on loan, right? He's a guy who's itching for minutes. And right now, according to what Arteta said, he's got to keep fighting. And I think, maybe we have the cover in the spots where he could play. I know he can play on that left-hand side as a left back, but I think he's had probably some of his worst games for. So I would rather not use him as an option there, especially if Cedric's in front of him and Tierney. So that leaves him third choice for both spots. Then you're not going to play him on the wings right now either, or in midfield. So he's kind of left out there, but I think he does need to get some minutes to continue to polish his game up if he wants to eat, whether it's at Arsenal or somewhere else, to go somewhere and try to get some playing time. I think we could probably see him go up before the end of the window as well. And this is all on a complete outsider. The closest thing I come to transfers is what my friends tell me, and usually that's like, "Hey, we signed Odegaard." And I'm like, "Oh, good. Good. Okay.
Are you
yeah.
friends with the gerbil because he's know a lot?
Yeah.
I wish
It was Richard Greer's. It was Richard Greer's gerbil, though. Was that the problem?
Oh fuck!
Is that-
God help him.
Well, Mike gave me his number.
Yeah, I know the guy. So question for you, and I'm putting it up on the screen here in a second. What do Morgan Sanson of Aston Villa, Filip Stevanovic of I'm sorry, that should have said Man City, not Partizan. That's where he's from. And Amad Diallo to United have in common? They are the only people who have been transferred into the Premier League in January for a fee. For a fee exceeding maybe £100,000. Everyone else is loan deals. There's been a lot more outs than ins, and from what I can tell, those are the only 3 purchases, and the maximum was 15 million. So, for us to bring in, I don't know if you consider Rekic is a purchase, I think, but not an expensive one, and one for the future. But for us to bring in Odegaard on a loan and Matty Ryan on a loan.
Yeah, Matty Ryan. Forgot. I told again.
That's an underrated signing, man.
Massively underrated.
I think people are sleeping on how good Matty Ryan is. I'm not saying he's a world beater, he's the best, but when people are saying, "Oh, he'll get by in cup games,"
he'll be a better backup force than Ospina was. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
I think Jonathan is a better backup force than Ospina was.
I think he's going to push Leno, and to be honest with you, when it comes to purely shot stopping ability, they're equal. I would say equal. People are saying
the ball out of the back with his feet.
For me, as we've touched on before, Mike, it was all about outgoings. This transfer window, it was about trying to move people on, and to be honest with you, they've done more than I expected in that department, and the signings are smart and financially safe, which is more than I could have asked for. But lads, what we're going to do is I've got a little surprise for you, by the way, at the end. Don't worry, I'm not going to show you my dick. We're gonna.
He's making us wait until Gooners versus Cancer for that.
Yeah, you have to pay for that. What we're gonna do is just throw our predictions in, our score predictions, and what you think who you think the first goal scorer will be. So, Feinberg.
Cool, putting me on the spot. God, I hate to predict a win because then it never happens. So to protect that, I'm gonna go 2-2. With the first goal coming from, I'm going to say it's going to be Holding. How about that?
Oh, that's a brave one, isn't it? Yeah, and as well, lads in the chat, if you can stick yours in.
I was trying to think of who I could be sure was going to start, and I think he's probably the only person. With the injuries and the rotations, he might be the only one.
Mike?
Yeah, I think Arsenal are going to beat United 1-0, and I think it'll be a long ranger from Thomas Partey.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
Fucking jizz if I see that. Jason,
his long range shots seem to be more in the Xhaka category, like the 1 in 100.
Yeah, but fuck
when
the
it goes in, it goes in, like Owen's wife likes to talk about.
Let's see. I'm going to go out on a limb here because I know we've had some really fun matches with United in the last few years. I'm going to go 4-2 Arsenal with the win. And I'm going to go last goal scores El Neni. That's what I'm going to go with.
Last goal score. He scored a banger. That would be more shocking.
Like he did against Barca a few years ago. I think it's one and only Arsenal goal.
And if it's 4-2, it's clearly we go down 2-0 in the first half and then score 4 on the trot, right?
First score is definitely going to be Marcus Rashford or Anthony Martial. Hands down.
Yeah.
One of them went down pretty hard in the game yesterday. I think it was Martial, actually.
I think it was Martial. By the way, Pepe has more goals than Martial this year. Throwing that out there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go an Arsenal win 3-1 with Alex Lacazette scoring first. So yeah.
Because he can't pronounce Alexandre.
Right, the surprise, lads. Mike McDonald. Everybody knows you as the ultimate quiz master, hosting quizzes on Ryan's podcast, Mr. Arsenal Podcast, which myself and Mike have had the pleasure of participating in a couple, and they're very enjoyable. But tonight I would like to put not only the two boys' knowledge to the test, but the quizmaster himself's knowledge to the test. So we're going to do, I've got 4 Who Am I players here. There's 5 clues. So essentially what we're going to do is if you answer...
Turn the tables on you, baby.
If you answer on the first... we're going to do it slightly different here. If you answer on the first clue, you get 5 points. On the second clue, 4 points. So on, down until the fifth clue. Okay. So all you have to do is just shout out the answer, and then we'll tally up the scores at the end. As I said, there's only 4 players here. I hope I've done a good job and not made these too easy.
Emmanuel Frimpong.
Yeah, you win.
Sorry.
That's an instant win.
I just assumed Dinch was coming up soon.
Yeah.
What did I say? Like Miguel Almunia one time.
What was the rule? Yeah, I'll do that. What was the rule, Mike? If you shout it out, so if you shout it out on the first clue and you're wrong, it's -2 points, is it?
Yeah, it's -2.
Yeah, -2. So if you shout it out in the first clue and you get it wrong, it's -2. Lads, if you can all look over to the right-hand side and move over to the private chat so you can't see the live chat. So there's no cheating here. Okay. So we'll start. I need to make sure, because we've got the names of the players written down at the top of them. I need to make sure I don't just shout out their names or this is ruined.
There's a Saturday Night Live sketch, or like a late night comedy show over stage. That's about exactly that. Like this soap opera actress, and she gets on, and the first thing she says is the clue that she's supposed to be getting the person to guess. So if this works out, it's a great game that Owen came up. If it didn't, then this is Mike McDonald's idea.
Yeah,
and you can flame him on Twitter. So
this is copyrighted as well, and you didn't ask any permission. I'm going to get you, Owen. I'm getting it.
I'll see you in court, man. Look,
this is the Gooners podcast.
Yeah. There's Danny saying you're going to cheat, man. Don't cheat. It's the integrity. It's the integrity of the game, right?
I'm not. If there's anything that I'm known for, it's integrity. In fact, I'm changing my stage name to Mike Integrity.
It's the most ironic name ever. All of these players are either Arsenal players or ex-Arsenal players. Okay, so we'll start off with the first one. So clue number 1: Arsenal to La Liga. Arsenal to La Liga.
Cesc.
Oh, now you don't get to guess anymore.
No, you don't get to guess anymore. But we'll go through the clues anyway, just to rattle them off.
So we're not. Are we doing the thumbs up and thumbs down thing, or
no? We'll not do that. It'll just be
okay.
Yeah. So
it's enough different that you can't really you can't stew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So clue number 2. Clue number 2 was 89 Arsenal appearances. Clue number 3, retired in 2019. Clue number 4 was centre attacking midfielder, but not always.
Song.
Clue number 5 was Goldilocks. Come on, man.
So when you do the other clues, we're not able to guess.
No, this is just for fun now. This is the answers in and locked in by Jason.
Oh, jeez. Mike, any clue?
Well, I had Monreal down, but he never played centre attacking midfield. And he matches everything else, but he doesn't match centre attacking midfield. He's a Goldilocks, I suppose. Mm-hmm. My brain's gone frozen. I got
excited when you said 89, and then I realized that it wasn't about
1989. Throw it up on the screen here. You're ready? Someone in the live chat has got the answer, and it's Alex Slab.
Yeah. That was the when you said 89 appearances and retired in 2000. I was like, wrong four letter attacking midfielder.
Yeah.
Wayne would have gotten that one.
Yeah. Out of vintage slab. Yeah, so that's the first one up. So Jason's on -2 points off the bat. So moving on to the next one. Okay.
As ruining the game for the rest of us. But
so again, all Arsenal players. So clue number 1, debut against Sunderland. His debut was against Sunderland. Clue number 2.
Mesut Ozil.
Oh, the boys are all off the bat. Right, okay. Mesut Ozil in and locked in. So clue number 2, 24 goals for Arsenal.
Could still be.
Yeah.
Clue number 3, banged up. Banged up. Clue number 4, considered royalty by some.
Oh, Bentner.
And clue number 5, some would say a lord. So Mike McDonald on -2. Lord,
I'm winning.
just don't answer any, Mike.
This is the first time it's ever worked out for me to be quiet.
Did Mesut Ozil?
He did.
In Sunderland, he did, didn't he?
Yeah. That was he had that great assist to Giroud in that match.
Yeah.
Wonderful start.
Well, I feel a bit.
Player number 3, lads. Clue number 1, European and domestic medals. Clue number 2, injury has been a problem. Clue number 3, following in Daddy's footsteps.
Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Okay. Clue number 4, red seems to be his colour. And number 5, strong as a. Well done, Mike. Well done. What clue did you say that on number 3? So you get 3 points.
Changed his policy there of talking.
That's him texting him in the WhatsApp group. He knows the answers. He's trying to come off as being decent here. So we need a big one here. Okay, this one's quite a good one. I think it'll be tough to get. So if anybody in the chat can get it, Mike says he'll give you 20 quid. So here we go.
That'll do. I thought you were about to promise something else.
The final player. Okay, so clue number 1, 4 appearances for Norwich. Clue number 2, started at Luton. Clue number 3, pitched to pundit. Anybody? Sorry?
Matthew Upson.
Matthew Upson. Anybody in the chat want to throw their answers in as well? Okay, so we'll rattle on. Clue number 4, health battle off the pitch. And clue number 5, Celtic legend. And as Danny stuck into the chat there, John Hartson. So Mike Feinberg wins with 3 points.
You know what? I like this version of the game because it's 4 questions instead of like 49 questions because the cream rises to the top in those, and the cream is not me. But in this one, I'll take it.
Yes. Stop the count.
Stop the count.
Oh, and great game. Very good game. I like how you conceived and made that up. No, seriously, anytime you see, follow Mike McDonald on Twitter, follow Ryan Fletcher, Mr. Arsenal Podcast. He's done these regularly. You're always asking me to do them, which I appreciate. And the last time I left you in the lurch because I was so hungover I couldn't think straight. But I've enjoyed doing them, and they're really it clearly takes you a lot of time and effort that you put into them. So
and that took me like 2 hours to come up with 4 fucking players there.
So yeah, definitely go watch those. And we're toying around with the idea of doing a 24-hour charity podcast for Gooners versus Cancer this summer. And we're going to need it's not just going to be me and Owen talking for 24 straight hours. Mike, we may call on you and see if it's okay to get a game together for our channel. But that was fun. Everything that results in winning is fun. So is that all we got?
That's you, buddy. Over to you.
All right. Well, I'm out. I'm podcasted out today. Thank you for everyone that joined us. If there's anyone that wants to ask any questions in the pod, I saw some earlier, and then we kind of moved into the game predictions. But Jace, are you a private citizen now, or I usually ask where we can catch you, when your next article is going to be, what you're up to. But
I am. I'm an Arsenal podcast civilian now. I'm strictly a listener. Well, not strictly. For occasionally, when you ask me 49 times, I might say yes and come on a podcast. No, you can catch me on Twitter at Colonial Cannon. You can also catch this great St. Totteringham shirt over at my good friend Jordan Weeb. I will post on at Colonial Cannon on Twitter the link to the website and to Jordan's site, because he's got not only some Arsenal stuff but some really cool art stuff that he does on the side. People probably know Jordan from the old school Fresno Gooners, and he has been taken up north to Minneapolis. So sadly,
they got a good group up there too.
They do. Unfortunately, they root for one of the worst teams in MLS. And I say this as a bitter old NASL team operations manager who had to play the Loons many times and hated it. So, but yeah, go check it out.
Did you have a good session today?
Hardest core sesh I've had in a while, pal.
Yeah, Jace, the guy that made the T-shirt was Jordan was basically saying, enjoy your session today on the podcast. Man. I'm like, it's like
it's like a kick around. It's like a kick around. That's all it is. Just we kick around ideas, and we tell Mike how bad his are.
Yeah, well, they are. I'm not denying that. Like this haircut was clearly a bad idea.
The great thing is I get all my ideas from you, so
Well, it's good to have you on. Good to see you again. We'll meet again, Mike. Pure class. Gunnerstown. Is that the best place to find your deep thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I do a couple of different things. I do the review blogs at Gunnerstown after every game, the positives, needs, and hopes, which is kind of different to most everything else that's out there. And so you can find me. I think my Twitter's down here somewhere, Mike_M McDonald. I also do the transfer blogs for Pete at Le Grove. And there's a couple out there recently. I did just before Christmas on attacking midfielders. Of course, we have one now, and strikers for the future. That took me about 2 weeks to put that together. So, and then I'm on the Gunnerstown Pub post-match podcast as well. I do have a cheeky prediction. Can I throw a cheeky prediction out?
You can throw any kind of cheek that you want out there.
Okay, all right.
Podcast is all about cheek.
Yeah, I'm a regular listener. I know about the cheek. So here's my cheeky prediction. And I don't know this, and I don't even know if I believe this, but I've got a sneaky suspicion that Arteta was told, you've got to get rid of the deadwood if you want to have some money. I think everybody would probably agree with that, whether that money comes now or in the summer. And they got rid of the deadwood for the most part. And I've got a feeling that they're going to do something tactical, untalked about, much like the Matty Ryan one, and sneak in to get a player that a lot of teams want at the very last minute so that the competition isn't there. And I think they're going to surprise us. Now, that might mean that we have to sell a Maitland-Niles or an Nketiah or Reece Nelson in the next few days. But my sneaky prediction is Yves Bissouma at Brighton. And the reason I say that is that A, I think we want him, and B, Brighton, I think, have signed his replacement already, which is this guy called Saucedo from South America. He's a defensive midfielder, and they bought him, and no one's talking about that. So I'm sort of putting all this together. At the same time, I'm thinking this is ridiculous because Brighton could go down and he's their best player. But why not chuck it out there in case it happens? And
so much better. I thought you were going to predict Trump 2024 there. I was like, fuck.
Wow, Mike lives in a red
state. Give me a month over
here. Lives in a red state, so. and so does Jace. But no, believe me, I would love to see that happen. I'd give him Xhaka straight up for him. If
I welcome that prediction. Welcome that prediction.
Well, you can see the tactics in it, in the fact that nobody thinks that Arsenal are going to buy anybody because they've bought players already, right? And no one's talking about it. And apparently Yves Bissouma is wanted by a whole bunch of Champions League clubs, including Liverpool and United. So if you're going to buy him, if you wait to the summer, is he going to really go to Arsenal? Or is he going to go to Bayern Munich or Liverpool or United? So why not? If I was Arteta, I'd go to Kroenke and say, look, we're going to do this in the summer anyway. Why don't you just advance me the money? Because we're not going to get this guy in the summer if we wait. At least that's how I'm thinking,
Well, Joseph and Alonzo, flattery will get you everywhere. I'm getting some love from the chat room tonight, even though
you guys don't know what I had to go through to get on this podcast.
It's probably sarcastic, and if it is, then you get the podcast. But yeah,
no, I'm pretty sure they're talking about Mike McDonald when they're talking about a haircut. Let's be honest.
True.
That's true. Yeah,
it's strong.
And probably talking about him here too, actually.
Yeah, because I was just thinking there. I was thinking
you just have to ruin my whole evening. I forgot that Mike was called Mike for a second.
The gleam of your head with the light above you, it looks fantastic.
It's I actually tweeted out about that, and all of a sudden our listeners shot up because they had to come in and see it. I do not like the camera positioning in my office at all. So this has been the Gooners Podcast. And any big predictions from you? Like, are we doing a podcast next week? Is Andy ever going to be seen again after today?
No, Trump 2024 is my prediction.
Let's not go there. All right. So this has been the Gooners Podcast. Please, if you haven't clicked the like button, click the like, even though it doesn't really affect us one way or the other. If you are listening to this on iTunes, check out the YouTube feed. It's always more entertaining. And when you just hear people start laughing for no reason, it's usually because I put something stupid up in the chat or a banner. So you'll get the visual gags that way. And thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jace, for joining us. Owen, always a lovely time. And I think we'll finish off by just saying